They terrified the world. Surrounded by mystery. It's a rock and roll nightmare.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
When I first saw this place, I almost had an orgasm.
This place is like a ghost town. Where is everybody?
Remember the wind.
Oh, I'm used to it. I've lived in Chicago.
This isn't Chicago. The wind can be very dangerous at this time of the year.
Like Appleby says, I'm a loser and an absolute zero. So you've been exiled or something?
Almost. I'm finishing a new book. I'm into mystery. Murder.
So am I.
What's your favorite weapon?
M16s.
He tried to kill me. He's already killed 2 people.
I'm a seaman. I'm going to check out those corpses of yours.
Smart shot. It's very smart.
Ballsy little wench.
They built their houses one on top of the other, underground passages for protection.
Pinocchio!
You are the winds beneath my wings.
This is Hans Manship from House of Death, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. And Erik, you outdid yourself with your intro there.
Yes, my lovely singing voice.
I do. Did I hear Harold's plops in there? Or are they coming later?
No, you heard somebody else's plops. I can play Harold's plops for you now if you really miss them.
Well, thank you. And you, of course, this is your choice. The Wind from Nico Masterakis. Is it Masterakis?
That's what I would say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we'll be coming on to that a bit later. But how are you doing, Erik?
Good. Yes, very good. I've got my Pepsi Max and my no t-shirt.
No t-shirt? Oh, is it warm where you are?
Well, it always is because I have to close in the windows.
Ah, of course.
Otherwise, you'd hear screaming children, and nobody wants that.
Are those the ones you got locked in your cupboard?
Well, there's those as well.
Yeah. Okay. Have you been to Greece?
Many times. I love it.
Ah, so have you been to like remote islands and sort of towns with no people in them?
Not that to that extent, no. No, I've never been in Anthropophagusville, no.
Well, no. What about you, Nathan? Would you like to go to Greece?
Yes, I would go to Greece and see all the Grecian things.
What's a Grecian urn? About $5 an hour?
Yes.
Oh.
It's and unfortunately that wasn't Erik's joke of the week. I'm sure you've got something very, very special in store for us.
Very special, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Joseph? Would you like to be marooned on a Greek island with Meg Foster?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. Short but succinct.
Technically, she's not on she's on the Greek mainland on this one, I believe.
Is it? Okay, well, I was reading up about the island. I mean, we won't do a geography thing, but didn't it say that it wasn't an island, the place, and it got there's a causeway that kind of sometimes goes underwater.
Oh, I didn't read up on that. No, sorry.
Okay. Well,
so it's a sometimes island.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is kind of the Hysteria Continues summer holiday episode, really, isn't it? Although it's not possibly the best working holiday for Meg Foster's character, but
she gets very little work done.
She does, yes. But anyway, we're talking at length about The Wind, aka Edge of Terror, a little bit later as our main feature. But before we do that, let's catch up and see if we've been watching anything we want to talk about recently. So, Nathan, how about you?
Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to watch anything, but I will say that you guys had mentioned a Child's Play knockoff that sounds amazing. So I can't wait to hear how that was.
Well, yes, that was Joseph alerted us to that. Did you get a chance to watch that, Joseph?
Yes, I did. This is a film called Diabolical Inheritance, which is a Mexican riff on Child's Play, or probably more to the point, Dolly Dearest. And we had spoken about this in detail on the Ruben Galindo commentaries we'd done a while back about how Mexico, as it kind of relates to these genre takes, at least, they seem to be stuck stylistically 5 years in the past. As this was apparently made and released in 1993, but everything looks suspiciously 1988, if not a year or two earlier. Farmer Vincent had mentioned this on the forums, and it caught my eye quickly because of the film's central antagonist, which is this Harlequin doll, and it's played by a little person with like dime store clown paint. And I think Farmer Vincent had called the image of this dwarf running around in mime kind of, he called it nightmare fuel, and I agree. It's so laughably absurd to look at, but the movie has other hilarious scenes as well, including one where the main male protagonist, he's been grieving, and this is a spoiler, I guess, just a minor spoiler, but he's been grieving the death of his wife, and his secretary decides to tell him he needs to get over it because she feels uncomfortable. And they have this, elsewhere they have this slow motion sequence of a pregnant woman being menaced by this doll, and she falls down the stairs to her death. And the scene is supposed to be in slow motion, but it plays like they don't know how to achieve the effects, so they simply ask the actress to just kind of roll down some stairs very slowly. Overall, it's a little stale, and the good bits are kind of short burst. But I thought it was just about what you'd expect from a Mexican riff on the killer doll genre. And overall, I had a fun time with it. Did any of you guys, apart from Nathan, get a chance to watch this, Erik?
I had it on in the background. I can't actually say I sat down and watched it because it was only last night we were alerted to it. But as you were saying, the impression I got from it was that it was very good in short bursts, and then because the print is VHS quality, and is it a shot on VHS movie, or sometimes it looks like it is, and then sometimes it looks like it's film. I couldn't tell. To me, it looks like it was shot on film, but it was edited on video. Yeah. I love the idea of like the clown is a doll for any scenes that it's inanimate, but then when it comes to life, it's as you said, the sort of Mexican little person with clown makeup on, and it's both funny and eerie at the same time. It's hard to describe. It's quite well done. I'd like to see a better quality print of it. I'm at the stage now where we're watching rubbish VHS quality prints of films lessens my concentration span. I found I was pottering around and dipping into my phone and that whilst it was on, but the parts, like it certainly picks up a pace at the end where the doll and the son are sort of running around causing havoc. But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
Did you say you'd seen it, Nathan, or you or not?
Well, I started it, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. I did get a laugh out of one scene early on when they're talking about the grandmother that used to live there, and they say, yeah, she had all these satanic stuff in the attic, and then they just kind of laugh about it. I guess it wasn't that serious.
No. We should point out it's on YouTube, is where we were directed to watch it.
Well, I'm sure that's one that Vinegar Syndrome will pick up at some point, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I'm afraid.
It's very Nathan, I'll say that, because it's in terms of both something Nathan would enjoy to watch and something he could possibly make as well, with Hazel Tankersley.
Ah, wow, and giving Nathan ideas. So, excellent. Well, one to look out for. Joseph, was anything else?
No, that's all I've had the time for, unfortunately.
Okay, how about you, Erik?
Well, I've seen two, what I would call new releases, but they're actually about 2 or 3 years old, both of them. So I watched In the Tall Grass, which is on Netflix. We've probably mentioned this before. It's been out for a good while. But it's directed by Vincenzo Natali, who did Cube, which was one of my favorite films of the 90s. And this one has a great Twilight Zone-like premise. It's written by, Stephen King and his son Joe Hill, I think, combined to create this the short story on which it's based. But I adored the first half of the film, which, the setup is a brother and sister are en route to San Diego, and they stop in the middle of rural America somewhere when they hear a cry for help coming from this field of tall grass, hence the name of the film. And they go to investigate and then find that they're sort of trapped in some kind of supernatural place where time and space have no meaning. And they can't get out of the field. There's no way out. And that first 45 to 50 minutes where everything is mysterious is blisteringly good. I thought it was really eerie and mysterious and had that kind of sci-fi Twilight Zone vibe that I like. But then the second half just fell apart for me. Patrick Wilson plays his character who comes to the fore in the second half of the film as a man who's sort of under the influence of the field, and it all gets bogged down in things about some mythical rock and that's in the center of the field, and he turns into a homicidal religious maniac, and just the film just loses that eerie, mysterious edge it had in the first half. And yeah, I just completely tuned out for the second half. So and reading reviews of the film, I think that's a common consensus that people felt the second half fell a bit flat. But I did enjoy that first bit. I mean, there's a time loop element to the film also, but it's not handled as well as something like Triangle or Time Crimes. But so my coming away from it, I thought, really good first half. Didn't like the second half. I'm not sure where they could have gone with the film after the first half, to be honest, because I couldn't picture like what I would have wanted from that second half, but just what they did deliver just didn't do anything for me. Has anyone else seen it?
Yeah, we did discuss it on the show some time ago, and I think I'm with you, because I like Patrick Wilson as an actor, but I had the same feeling that I think it was over long as well, wasn't it? Wasn't it quite a long film?
Yeah, it's about an hour and 40, which is a bit long for something that's a thin enough premise. Yeah.
Well, I think it was quite repetitive, wasn't it? Towards the end, it kind of just seemed to go. I mean, obviously because you had the whole loop thing going on, but it works better in something like, say, like a film like Triangle or those kind of Time Crimes. But I thought, I agree. I thought it worked less well in this context. And I always find, to be honest, I do find when I like Stephen King, I like it a lot, and sometimes I find when it fails quite hard. But yeah, I saw it when it first came out on Netflix, and I've not seen it since. But my memory serves me well. I've got sort of similar feelings to you with that.
Nathan or Joseph, you seen it?
I started it, but I don't remember finishing it. So I mean, it just in one ear and out the other, I think.
Okay, the other one I watched, which I enjoyed much more, was Zombieland Double Tap, which I thought was a really fun sequel to what was quite a fun original. It reunites the original four main cast members, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, and Abigail Breslin. They're all back. This time Abigail Breslin's character takes off with sort of this hippie stoner character, and the other three are trying to catch up with her. So it's kind of once again, it's kind of a road movie. It starts off with them living in the White House and ends up with them heading to Graceland and beyond. It's fast-paced. It's a lean 90 minutes. It's packed with funny dialogue and pop culture references, and it's brilliant comedic performances again by particularly Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone, who I thought were terrific. But there's a new character in this. Now, she might be kind of Marmite to some people because it's a character played by Zoe Deutsch. Is that how her name is pronounced? But she plays a character called Madison, who I absolutely loved. She's this really over-the-top ditzy airhead valley girl, dressed all in pink with the handbags and all the luggage with her, and she has just so many wonderful one-liners. Like she's trying to just convey the fact that she's feeling so sad about living in the post-Acropolis. I can't even say it, and things like that. Like she's so ditzy, and her character is at the core of one of the great sort of plot twists in the film that I thought was hilarious. So it works best as a comedy road trip movie, but there are zombies in there, of course, and when we do meet the zombies, it's often funny and often quite gruesome. The effects are really good. One zombie gets chopped up by a combine harvester and turned into a bale of hay, which I thought was very funny. And there's these little cutaways like they had in the first one to the zombie kill of the year, which is they cut away to various people around the world, killing zombies in inventive ways, one of them involving the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was quite fun. So I'm a jaded zombie movie watcher, but I really enjoyed Zombieland Double Tap. It's light and breezy, but I enjoyed the original, and I thought this one was just as good. And as I said, there's that central character of Madison who might turn people off because she's very over the top. And people might find her annoying, but I think it's exactly the type of character that myself and Nathan really, really get a kick out of in films like this. So yeah, anyone else seen Zombieland Double Tap?
Yeah, I saw it again when it came out, I think, and I enjoyed it. I don't remember a huge amount about it. It's kind of like it's kind of popcorn fodder, which isn't a criticism. It's just a kind of a film that kind of you enjoy and washes over you, and you soak it up. But it's not a film that's necessarily makes a lasting impression. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I was surprised. It felt like it was because I think the original one was 10 years ago, was it, or something? Or?
Yeah, it was 2009 was the first, and this one was 2019.
Right, so it's 10 years later, which is quite unusual, isn't it, to do a follow-up that late?
Yeah, and get all the 4 cast members back as well.
Yeah, so it was testament, obviously, to like the script and the fact they obviously enjoyed doing it, that they did come back for it. And I like that character, the Ditzy character. But I say it's a film I saw when it came out, so I haven't seen since. So I don't remember a huge amount about it. But again, I just remember I sort of enjoyed it for what it was.
Mm-hmm. And, well, that's it for my recently seen, so.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. I've been in England for the last week. So apart from watching marathon sort of sessions of 4 in the Bed, which in case if you're not in the UK, that's kind of where you have people going to each other's bed and breakfasts and then rating each other and then having a big ding dong fight at the end about
wait a minute, Stuart makes you watch 4 in the Bed?
Well, hey.
No, my mother does.
Well, hey.
Well, it's called 4 in the Bed because it's basically...
It is called 4 in the Bed in his defense. It's a light-hearted afternoon show on Channel 4.
No, I'm talking about him actually watching 4 Men in the Bed.
That is the porno. There probably is a porno version of 4 in the Bed, but I haven't seen it. But in this one, you have it's basically people go to each other's B&Bs and bed and breakfast, and then they rate each other, and then they pay what they think their stay was worth, and that it always ends up. The one I saw, there was an elderly woman, an older woman who had a big kind of fight with these 2 other women at the end because she said her bedroom smelled of sick. So anyway, it's always they're going around finding bits, hairs, like pubes stuck to the ceiling and things like that. So anyway, it's kind of...
Stuck to the ceiling? Wow.
Or just kind of random hairs and spiders and stuff like that. But it's high drama for like lunchtime. But anyway, so that's all. My mother's not a big horror movie watcher, so we kind of ended up watching lots of daytime TV. So hence, I haven't seen anything, but I did, while I was back in the UK, I did pick up a few Blu-rays that I've been meaning to. The Woman in Black, the 1989, I think it was, made-for-TV movie, not the Daniel Radcliffe Hammer, not atrocity, but kind of rather bland remake from 10 years ago or so, and which is something we will probably be discussing on, we will be discussing on one of the Patreon sort of picks coming up next month, I think. And also I picked up The Exorcist 3 on Blu-ray, the Arrow release, which was has got the extended cut or the director's cut, because I know famously The Exorcist 3 was... they said at the end, where's the exorcism? This is called The Exorcist 3. There's no exorcism. And they kind of forced them to reshoot this whole ending with this kind of exorcism. Well, it's funny when you get films like that have been, go into this kind of hell of reshoots and test audience receptions and all kind of things, and you always expect that means it's actually you always heard about like Harvey Weinstein making people change movies for his own personal preferences and fucking everything up, and so but with this actually it kind of seems like it did work for the better. So but I'll be looking forward to dipping into that. The other one I got was the 101 Films release of Hell Night, which I think is probably more or less a port over of the Scream Factory release of Hell Night. So sadly, 101, if you're listening, we are available for commentaries. So we didn't get a chance to do the commentary for this one, although we would have obviously loved to have done that. But it looks like a stacked release with lots of interesting interviews with cast and crew and all sorts of things. So yeah, I kind of finally upgrading my Hell Nights to Blu-ray, so looking forward to catching up with that as well. So although I haven't watched anything, I do have things to watch, and I will be discussing them a little bit later. So, but I guess that means we're headed off to a Greek island, or not island, well, whatever. Well, let's see. Anyway, well, here is the trailer, I think, for The Wind. And Erik, you'll bring us back, will you, after this?
For Sean Anderson, life has always been a challenging game, full of surprises, twists, and unexpected endings.
Just promise me that you won't be nosy and that you'll stay out of trouble this time.
Well, being in the wrong place at the worst possible time is in my blood.
Sean makes her living writing. about murder.
I'm into mystery. Murder.
So am I.
I'm afraid I haven't read your books.
She has carefully picked the location for her new book, a desolate, deserted, 2,000-year-old city.
Do you believe in ghosts, dear girl?
I've never seen one.
Neither have I. But at times like this, I feel them passing by.
From her rear window, she witnesses a murder. A real one.
Brilliant move, dummy. Mr. Appleby, I think he's dead.
At night, the wind comes. A vicious, merciless killer wind.
The wind can be very dangerous at this time of the year.
You can't run. You can't go out. You can't hide. And you can't stay inside.
Died. So were you, Anderson.
Miss Anderson? Anybody home?
Why don't you just try to relax, Mrs. Anderson? You're safe now.
Famous last words.
How about this wind, huh? If I were you, I wouldn't go out in it because it can be a killer.
Meg Foster, Wings Hauser, Robert Morley, David McCullum, Steve Railsback. The wind will blow your mind. From Nico Mastarakis and Omega Pictures.
When mystery novelist Sean Anderson arrives in the remote Greek town of Monemvasia, Elias Appleby, the pompous British landlord of the house she's renting, warns her of two dangers: the wind, which gets dangerously strong at night, and Phil, his sleazy and suspicious American handyman. As night falls and the wind starts howling, Sean witnesses the shocking sight of Phil burying Elias's dead body in a shallow grave in his front garden. Trapped indoors from the raging tree branch breaking wind, Sean must play a deadly game of cat and mouse with the murderous Phil, who'll stop at nothing to silence this inconvenient witness. So there's the wind. The lead character is spelt S-I-A-N, which I would say is Shan, which is a Welsh name, but they keep saying Sean in the film, so yeah, I'll refer to her as Sean going forward. But this came out in Blu-ray in the UK in April of last year, 2020.
Well, it's the same thing, Eric. It's just a different inflection on the A.
Yeah,
Sean,
I would say Shan.
Sean.
I would say Shan.
Potato, potato.
Yeah, tomato, tomato. Zucchini, courgette. This came out on Blu-ray, yes, in the UK in April last year, and I bought it purely based on the front cover because I'd never seen it before, but I love the cover art for the film, which is a painting of Meg Foster with somebody delicately placing a scythe in front of her neck, and along the scythe there is a man chasing a woman who I presume is meant to be Wings Hauser and Meg Foster, and it's very gaudy and exploitation fantastic, the artwork, and that's what drew me in. I didn't really know anything about the film, and when I watched it, I was kind of underwhelmed to a degree, which is why when we listened to if you listen to the last episode when I was announcing that I was going to cover this film on the next show, I was kind of apologetic about it because my memory was that I found it a bit underwhelming, as I said. Now, I do like Nico Mastorakis. I thought Zero Boys was good, and I kind of have a soft spot for the Oddball Island of Death, which is the weirdo 70s film he made set on a Greek island with this couple going around just killing people randomly. So the slasher aspect in The Wind isn't a mystery at all. There's no spooky masked villain. It's, there's nobody going around stealthily stalking his victims. It's really just a two-hander. It's Wings Hauser and Meg Foster. And so that's probably what I was taken aback by, is it doesn't feel anyway like a slasher movie, certainly on that first viewing. And I was kind of meh about it. However, the second viewing for this podcast was really beneficial because I ended up enjoying it quite a lot more. It's by no means a classic, but it has a lot going for it. For starters, the location, it's set in kind of a deserted Greek village, a similar setting to Anthropophagus. So it's got this picturesque backdrop for the mayhem, and it feels quite exotic, even though it's all like totally windy and stuff. And the other shocking thing about it is that she doesn't seem to have a TV in her rented accommodation, which is like, oh my god, it's like living in the Stone Age. Also, if you ever go to Greece, you probably know this, Justin, but just to let Nathan and Joseph know, you're not allowed flush toilet paper down the toilet. You have to put it into a bin beside you because the plumbing in Greece cannot cope with toilet paper. So
basically, they just want a bunch of shit rags sitting in a bin.
Yep. which makes my stomach turn, really. But I still like Greece, and I go there quite often. So,
well, that's what makes you shit. Is all that grease.
Grease is the word. Meg Foster I thought she was quite likable as Shan, really. And Wings Hauser is kind of suitably smarmy and unlikable as the villain. I don't think there's any subtlety in his performance. He's at a 10 on the psycho scale the first minute we meet him. Am I mistaken, or is there a scene in the film where he does poppers? He sniffs something. Is it poppers?
He's got the bullet. He picks up the bullet, and it looks like he's sniffing it, but he's not. Okay,
because I was wondering, is this like the second film in a row where we have people sniffing poppers? You wait 240 episodes for a movie with poppers, and then two come along at once, but actually it's only one, so he's sniffing a bullet.
I actually thought he was doing something like that, but I looked it back. He's just got the bullet up, and the way he's like kind of writhing, it just makes it look like he's sniffing something, but he's not.
All right, okay. Yeah, I've just got poppers on the brain. I thought the night scenes with the howling wind were very 80s. They have very unrealistic sort of lighting, very stylish, and the score was really bombastic at times. Definitely no subtlety there either. That hand sickle that I was saying adorns the cover art of the film, it's a nifty little weapon. I think Jason Voorhees himself would be kind of envious of that one. The film has its fair share of silliness. The wind itself of the title is quite overdone. It almost has a supernatural feel, like the wind in Evil Dead or The Omen. Although, it doesn't seem to prevent Megs or Wings from wandering around in it. Although it does contribute to that ridiculous finale on the cliff top, which is quite wonderful. The British landlord, played by, what's his name again? Let me just check. Robert Morley. I thought he was kind of a fun character. Very odd to see him literally spitting out his words in these COVID-conscious times. I was watching this, as I said, on Blu-ray on the projector on the big screen, and you could see sort of the saliva flying out of his mouth as he's delivering his lines. He definitely was one who could do with a mask. I thought David McCallum was kind of underused, as was Steve Railsback, I suppose. David McCallum just kind of vanishes from the story halfway through. It doesn't really do anything, and poor old Steve, well, spoiler alert, doesn't last terribly long either. But overall, I was kind of surprised at how much a second viewing impressed me. I mean, it's a decent, if not spectacular, slasher movie, and I suppose slasher is probably not the right word. It's kind of like almost a home invasion movie with Meg Foster trying to barricade herself inside her rented accommodation. I thought it worked quite well. I'm curious to know, I mean, Joseph, had you seen it before?
I'd seen this a long time ago once, but The Wind. I think to start, it has this sort of kind of a moody classical setup. It's sort of Hitchcockian with the rear window elements at play, but the payoff is kind of laughably absurd and to the point. So there's kind of this stark contrast at play, but ultimately I think it works due to a variety of factors, not least of which are the two leads, played by Meg Foster and Wings Hauser, who go toe to toe throughout the 90-minute runtime admirably. Wings Hauser, he really reminds me of John C. McGinley and all of his manic and murderous desperation. And Meg Foster as his prey is just, what a woman. Anyone with eyes of steel who can rock striped polyester and a billowy white blouse, while not messing up her marvelous wall of hair, is, I'd consider that marriage material. I also love Mastorakis, his insistence on storied photography. I mean, every set piece has this kind of reason to it. It's most notably the wind from the title, which causes like storm barriers to bang about the house, and it sends people plummeting to their deaths, etc. And yet it's kind of reined in just enough not to topple Meg Foster's mountain of hair in front of the cameras. I think her hair only gets flat towards the end, just a little bit. But all kidding aside, the photography is just breathtaking here. It's definitely one of the film's strongest points. The setting, I think, is absolutely gorgeous as well. And I was really taken aback by the sound design with the wind constantly howling in the background. It's mixed just right, and it really gives the absurdity on screen this sense of mood. I really enjoyed The Wind. I think it's kind of like Hitchcock on a tight budget, and it's helmed by this creative type who, doesn't let a few missing dollars stand in his way. I'm hard pressed to remember a Mastorakis film that I didn't at least, find entertaining in some small way. And I think The Wind is one of his better efforts. He's an interesting filmmaker, and, The Wind is just a heck of a lot of fun. So great pick this week, Eric. Thumbs up from me.
Yay, thank you. Before we go any further, Justin has sent us a picture on Facebook Messenger that I just need him to explain.
It's because it reminded me of Robert Morley's character's wife.
Oh, yes. Basically, I'll just tell the listeners that it's a large rotund woman with a very blank stare, and in the background there are two men in assless chaps for some reason.
Yeah, it was a meme that was doing the round some years ago, and when I saw her in the his wife turning up, and it just looked, it just seems to be some random, rather rotund grandmother that they kind of got in to sort of walk around looking a bit sort of gormless, and she kind of shuffles around the village for about what seems like 2 hours before being murdered. And then when she's discovered by Meg Foster's character, she can't even keep her mouth closed. She kind of her lips are moving, not downstairs, upstairs. But anyway, it just reminded me of that character. I was just going to draw your attention to that when I got to my turn.
Oh, sorry. Well, do you want to do your turn now then? Sorry.
Well, yeah, it was just that, this is a film that I reviewed on Hysteria Live some years ago, and I think it's one that I trying to remember. I remember it came out on video in the UK under the title Edge of Terror. I think for the slightly more scatologically and maybe less mature audiences, the title The Wind may not have gone down as well with audiences in the UK. So they brought it out as Edge of Terror, and I think I had the VHS, and I certainly had the DVD when it came out. So for me, it feels it's like Joseph said. I've yet to see a Nico Mastorakis movie that I don't like to some extent. They always feel like they're never, apart from Island of Death, which goes too far. They always feel like perhaps don't go far enough, if that makes sense. It feels, I like The Wind Edge Terror. It feels like an extended version of a Brian Clemens thriller, the series of TV movies he did in the 70s.
Especially I'm the Girl He Wants to Kill. It felt like that a lot.
Yeah, it's very slight in so much that it's not that it's a problem, because a film like, say, Halloween, the original Halloween, is very slight. There's there's hardly any story there. It's I wouldn't compare this to Halloween, although to be fair to Nico Mastorakis, he's pretty good when it comes to suspense, and I do like the two main characters. Meg Foster's kind of an atypical, I kind of guess, in some ways as a character. She's certainly not played one note. She's quite funny, she's quite sarcastic, she's quite sensitive, but she also makes a good sort of final girl stroke woman sort of running away from the mad killer. And Wings Hauser does kind of what Wings Hauser always does, or mostly does, and that's kind of bug-eyed thing. But it unlike other slash movies necessarily of the time or before this, it's kind of the murders happen really because it's a kind of it's more kind of Hitchcockian, I kind of guess, if I want a better word. Obviously, you got the Rear Window whole thing going on, and did I see a murder? Did I not see a murder? But it all happens really because Robert Morley is about to kick Wings Hauser off the island or off wherever they are, and he kills him. And Meg Foster's character sees that, or thinks she sees the murder, and then it kind of kickstarts this kind of murder spree, which may not have happened otherwise. So it's not necessarily that Wings Hauser was completely nuts before the film started, but he also gains that kind of Michael Myers-esque kind of supernatural ability to kind of return from pretty much any injury, including the kind of being impaled on a scythe and hanging off from a window above cliffs to sort of suddenly come back. Although he can't survive that rather hilarious final shot of him being blown off the cliff face by a gust of wind.
I knew Erik was going to laugh. I just knew it before he even laughed. It just...
Well, he said blown off.
He was blown off. Well, he did that. They did the thing where he goes, whoa, and it's kind of done sort of that camera angle where you can't really see where he's actually standing, and then you have like one of those kind of movie mannequins falling off a cliff.
It was so phony, and I loved it. It just kind of hit the rock, and you could see like the fabric kind of twirl.
I know. I love it. The mannequins, they never move, do they? I mean, obviously because they're not real people. But when someone's falling back, they'd be putting their hands in the air, they'd be shaking their legs or whatever. They wouldn't just suddenly be like basically an ironing board in trousers and a jumper being thrown off.
An ironing board in trousers is a phrase that's not used often enough, I think.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I thought Robert Morley was hilarious. I mean, I do like him. I loved him in Theatre of Blood. He as the kind of, do you remember that one with the Vincent Price where he plays the kind of very camp hairdresser and they serve him his pet poodles in a pie. So Robert Morley was funny. I thought, say, his wife was. I thought, it's undercut through with lots of humour and but it doesn't kind of overwhelm the movie. And I say his wife, who doesn't speak any English, or turns up and sort of dodders around the village or the city, this kind of empty city for what seems like an eternity before being roughly taken from behind by Wings Hauser and his sharp implement. Yes, but it's fun. I mean, I'd say the Hollywood mansion at the beginning I thought was hilariously dated with that horrible furniture in her house.
No. I loved it. I would live in that. I swear I would.
That really horrible. It was kind of like the wicker furniture with those kind of big kind of cream cushions.
I love the dude's bed, the big brass gold bed. The bed frame is like gold. It's so gaudy. I love it.
It's I mean, also that David McCullum, he's kind of like but literally phoning in his performance from a swimming pool. So he must have loved that role, mustn't he? Because all he had to do is hang around.
It's the easiest paycheck ever, just talk on the phone.
By a swimming pool with a cocktail. Yeah.
Unlike Steve Railsbeck, who seemed to be, it's almost like someone, he said, I fancy a holiday to Greece. Can you write me into this movie? Because his character turns up about halfway point and plays the kind of the sensible, like, nothing's really going on before he gets murdered. but his character didn't really need to be in the movie at all, did it? It's kind of a strange inclusion, and of course the wind as this kind of extra character. And I love how the fact that you kind of literally you can't go out. It's so the night the wind gets up so high that it's so dangerous, and you can't go outside. Yet at other points there's a smoke machine going, and there's kind of this fog everywhere. It just seems a bit incongruous that you can have fog and a howling wind all at the same time. But hey, but yeah, it's a fun. It's not, it's certainly playing with a lot of the tricks from the slasher toy box, which is what Nico Mastorakis did with like the Zero Boys and Blind Date, those kind of movies. But he didn't necessarily. It never felt like he went kind of whole hog really with the kind of slasher stuff in those movies, because he did Grandmother's House as well, didn't he? Which again had that kind of similar thing, but again, not necessarily going full hog with the slasher movie stuff. But
for me, it always felt like he was always kind of like infusing his slasher stories with like action movie elements, especially this and the Zero Boys.
Because the Zero Boys, of course, is famously filmed on the same ranch as Friday the 13th Part 3, so it automatically has a slasher feel to it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it's a lot of fun, but it's quite slight, isn't it? It's not. It feels more like it. And I know our dear Amanda might be listening to this. I'm not to do it down, but it feels possibly more like a TV movie. That kind of something that could have been told in an hour that didn't necessarily need to be told in 90 minutes. But I enjoyed it. So thank you for picking it, Erik.
Nathan, you there?
I'm here.
What do you think of do you like Wind?
Well, this is my first time watching The Wind.
Were you blown away?
And yeah, I really thought it was a good movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. I thought that Sean was a little nonchalant about being stalked by a killer. She just seemed more annoyed by it than scared. But I mean, I kind of liked that. I thought that was kind of fun. I love the dialogue in the movie. It's just a lot of fun, like especially when she's talking to the old man. And to mention, when Steve Railsback first shows up, and this is to keep in mind that, he knows that there's something going on, out there, and she needs to be checked up on. He knocks on the door and he just starts yelling, "Open the goddamn door." Like, what are you doing? Why are you acting like this? Like, is everybody just annoyed in the movie? But I love when Sean decides to use the wind to her advantage and hits him with the shutter on the window. She uses like a little rope rig that she set up, and she just waits on him to climb up. And as soon as he does, she lets go, and the wind blows the shutter back and hits him in the face. I thought, well, that's an interesting use of, the wind.
I thought it hit his scythe and it stabbed him in the stomach.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a good little trick that she did. I mean, I thought it was a lot of fun. It's very, like you said, it's kind of one note, but that's not a bad thing for me. I actually really enjoy that. I agree with you about Wings Hauser. I'm like, he's just a psycho from the minute she sees him. There's no build up, where he acts normal, but then goes crazy. No, he is, like you said, out of 100 from the beginning to the end, which frankly, I thought worked for the film. Kind of added more to the, nightmarish quality. I love the scene at the end when she's trying to get away, but it's so breezy outside, I guess I should say, that it's a very slow motion chase scene. Because he's after her, but they're both like being blocked by the raging winds. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I can't believe I hadn't seen it before. I love the sickle or scythe or whatever it is as a murder weapon. Mountaintop Motel Massacre used it too, to good effect. So yeah, I think that's a good weapon.
Well, no, is it a scythe or a sickle? I can't remember.
I think it's a sickle. I think the scythe is like the Grim Reaper thing, isn't it?
The bigger one, is it? Yeah. Yeah, I never even thought about the difference between sickle and scythes. I'm too busy thinking about an ironing board and trousers, to be honest.
But no, I mean, I was really excited when I finished it, because I'm like, this is actually one I wish I would have watched a way earlier. So good pick, Erik.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I did think one little aside was that Meg Foster, considering she has that flashback to Robert Morley talking about his son's gun arsenal or his hunting. She said he's hunting guns. Then she finds a shotgun. And do people hunt with shotguns? But then she's the worst shot in the world, isn't she?
No, it looks like she finds like an M16 at one point. This gun is huge. I don't ever recall. My uncle was like a hunter. I've never recalled him having like an arsenal like that. That was insane.
It would, yeah. It's just you would have thought if she'd played it better, she could have shot him once, and then just kind of basically had the gun, and because he didn't know she was out of bullets, did he? So she could just wait for him to break in and then shot him. But there you go. Anyway, hello.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I was looking up the difference between a sickle and a scythe. So the difference is that a scythe has a long curved blade and a long handle, while a sickle has a short handle and a short blade. So you were quite right, Nathan. It is a sickle.
Justin just gave this heartfelt speech, and Eric's over there looking at the differences between sickles and scythes.
Yeah.
To be fair, when Erik was speaking, I was looking up bug old ladies and arseless chaps.
Fair play, I guess.
Yeah. Welcome to the wonderful world of the Hysteria continues. So, on the Blu-ray from Arrow, if anyone is interested, there is an interview with Nico Mastorakis. You can listen to the complete soundtrack composed by Hans Zimmer and Stanley Myers, who are two big names. And also you get the alternate Edge of Terror opening credits from when it was released on VHS in the UK. Shall we go into background, or do we have anything more to say on The Wind?
Background sounds good.
Background. Nathan, do you have any background?
No.
Joseph, do you have any background?
Yeah, just a little. The Wind was released straight to video in the United States via Lightning Video. In the UK, it was released in the same year. Released the same year as they released it as The Edge of Terror by Polygram, though the title card just says Edge of Terror. For us, Lightning always spared no expense with their glorious cover artwork, and you'd think for such a stylish film they'd have done the same for The Wind, but no, our copy had just a picture of Meg Foster, which is not a bad thing. Just her looking scared, and had Wings Hauser looking menacing. It's very disappointing from Lightning Video. The artwork that's featured on the Polygram release and subsequent Blu-ray releases with the two characters running down the sickle, I think that's a much better image. And interestingly, I think you mentioned that earlier, Erik, but I used to have the Turkish one sheet for the Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, that used the same artwork. And I think Nathan even had this as well at one point. It had a Meg Foster on it and all. It has nothing to do with Friday the 13th Part 5, but they just replaced the image of Robert Morley with that blue striped hockey mask from Roy Burns wears. I think someone mentioned this earlier, but Nico Mastorakis, he did admit that the film's alternate title, Edge of Terror, came about solely to avoid the associations with flatulence that came with The Wind, especially in the UK, because, they like to
Because
say,
people like Justin live there.
Yeah, exactly.
Erik, you were the one who did that intro.
No, you doctored that when I sent it. After I sent it to you, mine was pure and innocent when I sent it. You've obviously done some tampering.
I don't think anyone's listened to more than one episode of this show will believe a word you say.
I'm just looking at that poster now, Joseph, for Friday the 13th Part 5, the Turkish one. I'd completely forgotten about it. So that's, yeah. So obviously I had seen it before, but I just completely forgotten that it uses the exact same artwork as The Wind.
Yeah, Meg Foster's not in Friday the 13th Part 5. It's like, why? And, rather than replace Robert Morley with Roy in the mask, why not replace her with like another cast member? It makes no sense. But it's a beautiful poster either way.
Yeah, I'm wondering which came first then, because The Wind is 1987. Friday the 13th Part 5 was 85.
That's 85. Yeah.
So unless it was a re-release or a late release in Turkey, I don't know.
I don't know.
Interesting. But it does, because it looks like, it doesn't look exactly like Meg Foster, but it does look like Meg Foster.
Yeah,
so
someone must have gotten lazy and just like, I can just replace this with that.
Yeah.
Just call it a day.
Eastern European and Turkish posters were always a bit wacky when it came to the artwork.
Yeah, they're wonderful. But that's all the background I have.
Okay. Justin, do you have anything?
Yeah, a few bits. It started filming in March 26th, 1986. So I imagine they filmed out a season because this is cribbed from Wikipedia, but where they filmed is a place called Monemvasia, which is a town and municipality in Laconia, Greece. And the town is located on a small island off the west coast, or to the east coast of the Peloponnese. See, I can tell I've never been to Greece. And it says the island is linked to the mainland by a short causeway, 200 meters in length. The film, it looked like it was made for the kind of burgeoning home video market. I think it used either Joseph or Erik, you said it, but I mean, it went straight to video, and I'm not sure if it was ever intended for a sort of cinema release, because Nico Mastorakis was saying in the press around the time the film came out that the home video market was booming in places like Argentina and places where they couldn't get enough of these films. So it's very likely this was made specifically for the home video market. It did get a review in Variety in, I'm not sure when, I think 1987. And it wasn't a particularly good review. I'll just read a little bit from it. It says, "The Wind is a failed thriller which completely lacks interesting or believable plot developments. Headed straight for the video domestically, the pic poses no threats to the memory of the same titled Lillian Gish silent classic." Of course, that was when you search for the Wind, you come up with the Lillian Gish one more often than not. It says the film kind of descends into a series of gothic cliches.
You're a gothic cliche.
Oh, Erik. How kind. It says the Wind Machine gets a workout here, but the story is pointless. Script by director Nico Mastorakis and his collaborator Fred C. Perry does not establish any links between the characters and fails to establish even a rudimentary ambiguity to Winghauser's bad guy status. The result is uninvolving. So not exactly a glowing review. I found the only other thing I found was a review from when the Blu-ray came out, and it was talking about Meg Foster, and said that this was kind of, she had previous to this had been a kind of a mainstream movie star, and this was kind of the Wind was the first foray really into. Although I think she had been. Hadn't she been in, I think one of her first roles was that cannibal film, wasn't it, in the early 70s? The name escapes me. I'll look it up in a minute. But she went on, it says that she went on to appear in several Scarefests, including They Live and Leviathan in the mid-1980s. So, it said previously she was routinely working for the likes of Sam Peckinpah for the Osterman Weekend and John Borman for the Emerald Forest. So, some may say she was slumming it in this. Obviously, I wouldn't be one of those people. But I'm trying to remember the name of that film that I'm thinking of. Welcome to Arrow Beach, is it? Something like that?
Yeah, Welcome to Arrow Beach. Let me see. It's directed by Lawrence Harvey. A hippie girl wandering on a California beach is taken in by a Korean war veteran who lives in a nearby mansion with his sister. This girl soon begins to suspect that the mansion is home to some very strange goings-on. Yeah, sounds like a horror setup to me.
Okay, so she's not a stranger to horror, but certainly she was in the late 70s and early 80s. I think she was working in more mainstream fare. But anyway, that's all I've got, Erik.
Okay, well, I just have a few more things to add then. The opening scene in that wonderful house that you were mentioning, Justin, that you don't like, but Joseph would happily live there. That was actually the house of Nico Mastorakis. It's his own house that they used for those scenes. Yep.
He had excellent taste.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I was struck by in the opening scenes is that the Goodyear blimp passes by and displays a message from the character of David McCallum to Meg Foster's character. And I was thinking, wow, that's a really good effect. But actually, no, it's done for real, which, it probably would have had to have been. This is like pre-CGI era. They really hired the Goodyear blimp and really got it to display a message for the purposes of the film.
Back then, you could hire like Zeppelins to display private messages and skywriting and stuff like that.
But would not have been really expensive. I wonder.
Well, yeah, only the affluent would probably do something like that. Yeah. But it wasn't uncommon.
I'd love to get the Goodyear blimp to fly past Nathan's house and have it say, "It's y'all's turn," or "You selfish relative." I think that'd be really fun.
I got some string. I could fly you like a kite.
Yeah, that would be good. Outside his house.
Are you effluent, Erik?
Sorry?
Are you effluent?
Justin, you're so immature. First, you're adding the flatulent noises to my intro that weren't there when I sent it to you, and now you're saying things like that.
Affluent means rich.
There's a book we see in the film at the start, which is supposed to be one of, I think, Meg Foster's character's previous tomes. And the artwork used on the front is actually the artwork that they used for Bloodstone, which was directed in 1988 by Dwight Little of Halloween 4 fame. On the bonus features on the Blu-ray, Nico Mastorakis says that Wings Hauser was not the ideal person to have around the set, unless your idea of fun is chewing razor blades. This was his exact words. He used Wings Hauser in a subsequent film he did called Nightmare at Noon, and he said that between him and his co-star in that film, who I looked up on the IMDb, and I think he's referring to Bo Hopkins, he said that between the two of them they made his life miserable, and life miserable for everyone on the set, and that Wings Hauser was, quote, off his tits on coke for most of the shoot and was very aggressive. So so Wings Hauser, I think, is playing himself in The Wind by the sounds of things. He said Steve Railsback, on the other hand, was a very sort of sad and insecure actor, and he said it was really hard work trying to get a performance out of him. Conversely, David McCallum he describes as a joy to work with, which is not surprising, as all he has to do is sit in the sun beside a swimming pool with a cocktail for his fee, which I'm sure was not cheap, considering he was... In 1987, David McCallum still would have been considered a name, would he? Or had his star waned by then? I'm not sure.
Wait a minute. Did he say Steve Railsback was an insecure actor?
Yeah, this is what he was saying. He was saying he was very sad and very... I wouldn't have got that impression from him either. I never got
that from Steve Railsback, especially in other films I've seen him in. Maybe he just was embarrassed to be there. I don't know.
Yes, maybe it was. As you were saying, Justin, shot in the historical fortress town of Monemvasia, which apparently translates as one exit, which I'm assuming means that causeway. As you're right, it's not quite mainland Greece. It is a small island off the coast of mainland Greece. So that's where my confusion came in. Blood Tide, which is a previous Nico Mastorakis film, which is actually quite good as well, has James Earl Jones and a few other famous names. I have it up here. Who else was in it? Jose Ferrer. Martin Cove from Karate Kid was in it as well. But that was... it's not a Nico Mastorakis directed film. He just wrote it. But it was also filmed in Monemvasia. It's a kind of a monster movie. And as I said, the score is by Stanley Myers and Hans Zimmer, who are two huge names in the movie music world. So I'm wondering, just curious to know how they managed to rope them in to a low budget horror film. Two quick reviews that I got. One is from The Hollywood Reporter. It's now these are all taken from the bonus features on the disc, so obviously they're glowing reviews. The horror and comedy blend well in this skillfully crafted and highly entertaining feature from Nico Mastorakis. Using the solid structure of a genre horror piece, Mastorakis has beguilingly forged an urgent and vigorous tale. And then there's another one from the UK publication.
That byline, Erik, byline was featured on the Lightning video.
Oh, was it?
The Hollywood Reporter, yeah. I guess to sell the film.
Yeah. I wonder who they paid for that. No, of course not. It is a good film. Yeah. The UK publication Video the Magazine, which I used to purchase back in the day, takes me back. In January 1987... they review it as it's just been released, of course, under the title Edge of Terror. It's an atmospheric thriller which sustains well despite blowing its premise far too early. I don't know if there's a pun intended there. Production values are high and the scenery is perfection, but it must go down in history as almost unique in having a major character killed by an attack of the wind. So they liked it. But then again, Video the Magazine, as far as I can remember, used to like a lot of things. I think they even gave a good review to Police Academy 5, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's all my background.
Okay, well, thank you very much. What was the consensus on the group, Joseph?
Well, out of a paltry 25 comments, shame on you listeners, these two broke wind in the opposite direction. First, Ara Alishan writes, I absolutely adore The Wind. The cast is terrific, but really it's the unique setting that elevates it for me. But Chad Hemsley says, and I like the contrast voice there. I was thinking of Don LaFontaine in the trailer narration earlier. Wasn't really a fan of it myself. The more I see of Masterakis' work, the more I think Zero Boys, which I love, was just a fluke. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about 1 billion other podcatchers. If you enjoy the show and are willing and able to provide a monetary contribution, let the wind carry you to our Patreon site. If you want Eric's cell phone number, drop us a line at theHysteriaContinues, all one word, @gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you, one and all.
My cell phone number is premium rate.
Is it?
Yeah, it's one of those.
And if you don't want Eric to call you, then please send £5 or €5 to this address. But talking of Eric,
it's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So the lead actress in this film likes to adopt orphaned pets, particularly ones that attack Jason Statham. Many times she's done a Meg Foster. Adopting orphan pets. She's fostered the Meg. It's like fostering the Meg.
Oh my God.
Ew. Justin, that's absolutely immature and childish. That was a real liquidy one.
I couldn't hear anything. I didn't. What are you talking about, Eric?
It's like French onion soup.
I'm not even going to laugh at that because it's so childish.
Okay, this has actually turned into a really good joke now.
Well, Eric, I think you let yourself down.
I did not let myself down just because I didn't go down the toilet route like you do.
There was, the audience was waiting for your epic joke, the toilet humour, and you just, well.
Well, I'm 47 years old, Justin. I haven't laughed at a toilet joke since I was 9.
Right. Anyway, it's a good job we're self-publishing, aren't we? Because I'm not sure we'd still be on air if we were a network show. Let's draw a sheet of toilet paper over the last 5 minutes, shall we? And let's move on. We've got some feedback, haven't we?
Okay, well, I have one here. Hey, gang, this is from Wes Ray, and he says, hey, gang, I've been going back and listening to episodes I've not heard before. I try to only listen to the ones for movies I've seen, so as not to spoil. And there was one I listened to recently where the luxurious Biltmore estate in Asheville, North Carolina was somehow brought up. Nathan commented that it would be the perfect setting for a slasher movie. Well, it actually was, kind of. The 1980 Don Knotts and Tim Conway slasher comedy The Private Eyes was filmed there and has a very spooky atmosphere for a comedy. If you've never seen or heard of it, The Private Eyes is a more traditional horror comedy as opposed to airplane-style spoofs like Student Bodies, Wacko and Pandemonium. Make no mistake though, it follows the slasher movie formula to a T, as members of the mansion's eccentric staff are killed off one by one in a variety of ways by a hooded killer. All the while, the bumbling detectives, played by Knotts and Conway, try to get to the bottom of the killings and the mysterious death of the mansion's owner, Lord Morley. Your mileage may vary depending on how humorous you find Knotts and Conway, but for slasher completists, I would have to recommend The Private Eyes as a slasher comedy that is often overlooked. It was a favourite of mine as a kid, and it's entirely possible this was the movie that first introduced me to the slasher formula. Have any of you seen it? If you haven't already, you guys should check it out sometime, if for nothing else than the great mansion setting of the Biltmore. The Blu-ray of it from Hen's Tooth Video actually looks pretty great for a movie of its age and rarity. Until next time, take care, gang, and that's from Wes Ray. So, personally, I have never heard of The Private Eyes. It sounds like it could be kind of fun.
I haven't thought of that movie in years. That movie is great. I can't believe we haven't picked that movie.
Cool. What was the, he said we brought up the subject of the luxurious Biltmore estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Does anyone remember
Nathan went there on vacation one point, didn't you, Nathan?
Yes, I did. I toured it.
Oh, okay. There we go. That's why it came up in conversation. So, have you seen Private Eyes, Justin?
No, I've never. I got a vague recollection of hearing about it before, just in passing, but no, I don't recall ever seeing it.
I think maybe we should kind of see if we should pick it at some point.
1980.
Ah, okay. So it actually it falls within the golden era, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, we should definitely cover that and see if it holds up.
Well, thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Wes. And what's left to say apart from whose pick is it next time?
Well, it's mine, and I hope you guys are ready to dance to the.
I am ready to dance
to the sweet sights and sounds of Lucio Fulci's Murder Rock.
Okay.
Paranoia's coming your way.
The streets are to blame, and we'll be joined by good friend Greg Burkhart, who guested on the show. God, what was that? 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
Well, we look forward to welcoming Greg back on the show, and also, off to, where was it? It's New York, isn't it? One of Fulci's New York is a very atypical, perhaps, for Lucio Fulci, for people brought up on his gore epics of the late 70s and early 80s. So
let me just say, if you haven't seen Murder Rock, this is Lucio Fulci's Friday the 13th Part 5, to me at least.
Well, I can tell you that Greg Burkhart was on our 2016 episode for Maniac, the 1980 original.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll look forward to having Greg back on the show. And what are we playing out with, Erik?
Yes, we're playing out with synth pop pioneer Thomas Dolby and his 1982 hit Wind Power.
So why did you choose that song, Erik?
Because it has wind power. It's called Wind Power.
So nothing to do with, anyway.
Nothing to do with toilets, no, Justin. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
So no Susie. I just defended your honor, Erik.
You did. I love you even more. Let's have a baby.
The mind boggles.
So matter-of-factly, okay.
So who would be, would you carry, Erik, or would you want to be impregnating Joseph?
I think Eric's got the body to carry. I don't have the fortitude. My back's already bad enough as it is.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of a baby coming out of my bottom.
Well, let's just adopt, okay?
Yes, that's probably better. So, okay, well, we'll be back next time with some returning with some Lucio Fulci. So playing out Thomas Dolby. And so thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye.
Anderson!